Welcome back to another episode of Shift with Elena. In this conversation, I chat with a fellow entrepreneur, Asher King Abramson. He's the founder of Warma Jobs, and we talk about some of the biggest challenges facing job seekers today. It's how do we break through this noise of today's job market? How do we tap into networks and communities that we completely maybe forgot or just not aware of? So he's solving all of those problems and more. He's got a really interesting background. He's truly a builder and problem solver at heart. We really go dive deep into why we underutilize our networks, the mental blockers that keep us from reaching out to one another, and so on. This episode is full of gems and practical tips for any job search. If you're searching for a job, if you're not sure how to tap into your network, you don't feel comfortable networking. So this tool really offers all of that. This conversation dives deep into these topics. So definitely check it out. As always, subscribe, like, comment, and come back for more. Asher, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, you're shifting a lot of things in the world of networking and job search and just creating really awesome products that we're going to talk about because I've been a recruiter, I've been in job search myself. I do career kind of coaching with job search focus for people. And I think the Warmer Jobs that you're building is absolutely game changer. It's really, really, I mean it. It's really, really a cool tool. So we're going to dive into that. But before that, take me back to Asher in school. What brought you to kind of, give you this entrepreneurial edge to you, and what drove you to essentially build Warmer Jobs?
Yeah. Gosh, how far back should I go? I'll flash back to the end of the summer after my junior year of college. So I majored in psychology and minored in accounting, and
Okay.
did an accounting internship after my junior year. And I thought I was going to be an accountant. I interned for an accounting firm. Um, did that whole life, dressed up in a suit and took. I didn't own a car. This was in Los Angeles, so I would take a bus for 2.5 hours to get to the client sites for this accounting firm over the course of the summer. It was 2.5 hours there, and then it was like 2 hours back because I got a carpool for part of the way, and I was just miserable. And I realized that that was not the life that I wanted and not the career that I wanted. And so I decided to not pursue accounting, and then I freaked out. And I realized that I was going to have to pay for rent and pay for groceries, and I needed to get a job of some kind by the time I graduated college. And I was going into my senior year, and I had no idea how to do it. And I looked at the other people in my grade and got even more scared because maybe 5 to 10% of my grade knew exactly what they were doing when they were going to graduate because they'd been coding since they were 4 and they'd interned at Google and they were going to become software engineers, or they'd been reading Warren Buffett's shareholder letters and done an investment banking internship and we're going to go work at Goldman Sachs or whatever.
Where
That
did
was
you
like five.
study? That is a
This
fun, like
Oh,
who?
this was like 5% of my grade. This was not a huge percentage. This
Oh
was a
yeah, I
very
was
small
like, these are
percentage.
impressive people. I was just
Yeah.
partying and doing whatever.
Well, so that was so yeah, so this that was 5%. The other 90% of my grade, when I asked them, what are you doing when you graduate, was, what are you talking about? I'm gonna party and live it up my senior year. Like, I will figure this out after I graduate. And I got really scared by that because I went, no, I need to figure this out now. I'm going to have these student loans that are coming due, and I've got again, I have to pay for rent and groceries. I need to figure out what I need to do with my life and how to get a job. Um, and so I freaked out and then just started calling adults who I knew who had jobs and interviewing them. I asked them three main questions. I asked them, what do you do? What should I do with my life? And do you have a job? Actually, I asked four because I also asked, do you know any other adults with jobs who you could introduce me to also? Um, and I talked with all kinds of people. I talked with an environmental consultant, a tap dance PhD, someone who ran a toy company. I mean, it was all kinds of people. And I learned a lot. But the common theme that everyone would tell me was follow your dreams, pursue your passions, and everything will all work out. And so, I was talking with, for example, this environmental consultant, and I was like, well, I care about climate change. I'd love to work for your environmental consulting firm. Do you have a job open for me? They'd say, well, did you study environmental science? And I'd have to go, no. And they went, we don't really have any jobs for you unless you have the right background. Unless you know how to code. Do you know how to code? And I went, no, I don't have that background. And they went, well, pursue your passions, follow your dreams, and it'll all work out. I'm sure it'll work out. And I went, great. Like, but you don't have a job for me, and I want to work for you. Like, what do I do, right? Um, and I heard this over and over where they didn't have a job for me, but they told me to sort of keep following my dreams. And this all came to a head when I got through a connection of a connection of a connection. Again, just keeping asking more adults with jobs to introduce me to people. I ended up on the phone with one of the founders of one of the first big internet sites who, for reasons you'll learn soon, I'm not going to name here, but I went, if anyone knows what I should do with my life, it's going to be this guy because he has founded this very large, original OG internet site. And I get on the phone with him and I launch into my speech about how I'm a college senior and trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. And he cuts me off and he goes, "What's your name?" And I go, "Asher." And he goes, "Aaron, I'm in the car with my wife on the way to this dinner. I don't know how you got my number, but you want career advice?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, here's your career advice. Why should I pay you money?" And I froze. And I did not know how to answer the question. And I went, I studied accounting. I can do your books. And he goes, "I already have an accountant. I don't need an accountant. Why should I pay you money? This is coming out of my pocket." And he basically hangs up on me because I don't have an answer. I just start stammering and I left the call in tears. And I'd never felt more useless in my life. And I felt like I needed to be able to answer that question well to get a job. And so after that, and I'm giving you the long version of the story, but after that, I also through a friend who I think was in the dorm that I was in freshman year, got an internship at a startup in Santa Monica, because this was all in LA. And I loved this internship. I was getting feedback on this app for college students. And at the end of the internship, where I was working part-time, I went, "This is the environment I want. I'm very motivated by this. I love the culture. I think I want to work at this startup." And I asked them if they had a job for me. And they went, "We loved working with you, but we need people who know how to code. We need software engineers. Do you know how to code?" And I went, "No, I think I need to learn how to code." And someone who was at the co-working space that we were at mentioned that these code boot camps were starting to pop up. This was 2012, 2013. And I started looking into there were these 9-week, 12-week programs that would teach you how to code. And the promise was that you'd get a career as a software engineer afterwards. And so I ended up applying to two, got into both, and ended up doing App Academy, which was the first income share code boot camp in San Francisco. And went through that, taught there afterwards for a bit, worked in the field as a software engineer for a couple ed tech startups, came back to do a bunch at the boot camp. Loved the model so much, I ended up running my own version of that for marketing also, and I ended up getting into marketing for reasons I'm happy to go into. But I've basically run a couple boot camps in my career, and my career has become very much a mixture of software engineering, vocational education, some recruiting thrown in, and it's been very devoted to helping people find jobs because that's what motivated me. And I think that fear and anxiety that I had, especially as a college junior going on senior, around how to figure out how to navigate this part of life, I think it's incredibly meaningful. And so what's led me to Warmer Jobs and what I'm building today is I was looking at students who had graduated the programs that I'd overseen. And I interviewed the ones who got jobs quickly, and I interviewed ones that struggled to find jobs. And when I say struggle, that's maybe 9 to 12 months of searching. And there was a very common theme, which was that the students that found jobs quickly found them through their network, right? It was off of a sorority mailing list or a former coworker of a cousin, a lot of these first and second degree connections. And what surprised me was it was not enough to learn the technical skills to get the job, even though that was the promise of a lot of these boot camps, right? If you learn to code, it'll be easy to get the job. If you learn copywriting, if you learn digital ads, it'll be easy to get the job. And I think while that's true, it was not enough. And there was not as much attention paid to the networking piece and the warm referral side of the job search, because a lot of the advice that these graduates would get was around playing the numbers game and sending out a certain number of applications and expecting a percentage of them to convert, which I think can be true for specialized roles. And I think it was true for software engineers in the early 2010s, but I don't think as a whole it's the best job search advice. And especially now with, there's all these AI generated cold application tools out there that will apply for you. And I think you've probably seen as a recruiter on the other end, the day a job post goes up, you get slammed with 1,000 applications that all kind
Yeah.
of read like ChatGPT. And so you don't spend more than a couple seconds on each application, or you use your own AI to try to filter through them. And from my experience, and again, I've also recruited for a few different startups now, um, the folks who end up getting interviews more often and who get offers tend to be referrals. And I think it's just very overlooked. So, and I'm thinking of my North Star of how do I help people get jobs better? I think that referrals and networking are a very overlooked path to that, and job seekers tend to not pay as much attention to that. And I think it's very important. So that's kind of my story and how I ended up here.
First of all, it's so relatable. It's so tough even for graduates. Like I run sometimes the young talent pipelines where I just go and like go to college campuses and talk with university graduates and so on. And yeah, it's like it's crazy to me because it's the same situation now. Like the graduates, like they're in the same situation. You're totally right about these boot camps. Like they're great, they'll give you the skills, but what most people miss is the networking, is the not only the skills of the network, but like networking, building relationship, but also like how do you even, what do you do? You have one, so like how do you actually ask for that referral or help, and why should anybody help you, right? And yeah, so I want to dive deeper into that, but I do also think that to your point, I think a lot of candidates, at least that's what I see, because again, I've sat in the seat of a recruiter, and oftentimes I notice that they are thinking about how they want to get a job now, not how is recruiter, what is the perception or what's the mindset of a recruiter, hiring manager, whoever is doing the hiring, how are they best going to find candidates? And it's not through going through thousands of applications, which is why LinkedIn, in my opinion, is like just a madhouse. Because when you look at like how many people apply, and it's like we're literally doing each other a disservice because everybody just applies with the automated tools, and then we like as a society, that's why nobody can find a job these days, is because the process is so broken, and we just keep adding fuel to the problem as candidates by using these AI tools that actually make it worse for everybody else, frankly speaking. So anyway, but I can spend hours on it, so I'm gonna pause myself here. But I wanna learn a little bit more, like from a networking perspective. Like, why do you think it is that people like underutilize their network? Like, what is it? What's the actual like? Why is it such a problem?
Yeah,
Underutilization. Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a few major objections people have in their heads. So it's a mixture of, and I'll cover the objections, but it's those, and it's also just there's not as much talk about it. I think it's much more easy to talk about the cold application process, tailoring your resume, these very concrete things that you can do as part of your job search that makes it feel like progress, which they do help for sure. I think tailoring a resume is great, especially once you're in an ATS system and you're part of a formal process. But I think it's much easier to talk about that than networking and things that rely on context that you have and the people that you know. And I think it's just not it's not as easy to talk about for whatever reason when you're giving advice or you're scrolling LinkedIn and seeing what people say or looking on TikTok or what have you. I think it's just not what people associate with job searching as much. But I think some mental blockers that I've seen, and I'd be curious what you've seen too, is one, people are scared to reach out to people who they don't know very well because they're worried about their reputation or they're worried about using up social capital. And I think there's some truth to that. The way that I see people overcome that is one, they imagine that the person they were reaching out to reached out to them for a referral at their past company, and they think about what they would want to see in that message that that person had sent to them. So, if it's an old high school classmate who you haven't seen in 10, 15 years, um, think about, well, if they reached out to me and they asked me for a job at my company, like, I would expect them to have done some research, to maybe be curious about the company, to remind me of maybe something we worked on together, and sort of the more details you can fill in into what that message would look like, it's easier to do when you flip it and you realize, okay, I'm reaching out to this person. How can I make it look compelling to them, right? And I think that helps you get in the mindset of what a good outreach email looks like because you can start to
Mhm.
empathize with what it's like to be on the other side. I think that's one. I think two, doing that, you also just realize that you probably would want to help them, and most people want to help and want to help other people grow, and it's actually good for you long term because this could be a source of future hires down the road. It could be sales leads. You could connect them with their next job. I think there's a lot of benefits to just having someone in your network that's helpful anyway. And the last one is for a lot of roles, people literally get paid to refer you. There's someone I know who used to work at YouTube, and everyone he would meet at any party, he'd just say, I work at YouTube, I will refer you. Just like ask me for it. And he just handed them out like candy. And I think the recruiters probably didn't love him for that because there wasn't as much signal in the referral. But literally, people get paid to do it and they want to refer you. And people don't
Yeah.
always realize this. And I sometimes give a talk on this. And there's a slide I have of these LinkedIn and Reddit posts of people just posting randomly saying, hey, I have a referral link to Pinterest or Instagram or wherever. Use my link. And people just spam it out. And so I think if that's sort of the extreme, if you're reaching out to someone who you even sort of know, like there's actually a lot working in your favor that people don't realize. And so anyway, I think those are some of the mental blocks around it, and knowing exactly what to say when you reach out and how to craft that
Mm.
outreach. I think that's a huge part of it. So I'm curious what
Yeah.
you've seen too.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a lot of that. It's a lot of we're just afraid to ask. There's this thing like where I don't know why people are afraid to ask for help when it comes to job search because it's like because they ask in other areas, but it's like I don't know what it is about job search and asking for help. Because I'm trying to think, I'm like, okay, when people ask for help in other things, like it's like, okay, do you know I don't know, a plumber? Do you know a good bank? Do you have an advisor? Do you have, etc. But like it's you know what I'm saying? Like I'm always like, hey, do you have like I always go to my network, but then it's like job search, you're like, ugh. And I think part of it is because you're like, oh, I feel like a loser because I have to ask for a job and I don't have a job and I need to ask for a referral. So I think it is a mindset thing. But on the other end of it, people are you asking them for help. It's the same as if you're asking for a plumber, in my opinion,
Yeah,
or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So the person
yeah, exactly.
receiving, so I agree. I think that's a bit. I've also seen this quite a bit. This mindset, and then the other part, I guess, is the people don't know how to ask, and there's definitely good and bad ways of going about it. Like one way that I always people because people reach out to me on LinkedIn and they'll send me like homework to do, and I'm like, please stop giving me homework, right? Like, stop giving me homework because I don't want to read a whole long paragraphs of why you're the best for X, Y, and Z. You send me your resume, cover letter, all that, and just saying like, hey, can you just see what I'm good at? Like, what? And nobody has the time for that. So I think it goes back to like the warmer connections because they might already know you. So it takes out this like you're reaching out to complete strangers, which rarely works, versus reaching out to people that you have some sort of connection to, right? They've seen you, or maybe they know somebody that you know, which is where I think warmer job really stands out.
I think that's right. Yeah, there's some sort of signal there, even if it's like this is a real human being, right?
Yeah.
You see the rise of even these, what is it, overemployed people who have AI do their own interview processes for them, right? And it's like
Hmm.
even just knowing that someone is generally competent goes such a long way. Um,
Yeah.
so
So let me ask you what I thought. So when we were chatting initially, when we got introduced by Ridgen, shout out to Ridgen, by the way.
yes,
But when we got introduced, I remember when you were talking about it, and when you showed it to me, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is just so beautiful. Like, it's like the show do not tell. But if you could tell people, like, what's the, how does it actually like warmer jobs? Because there is, I like help us visualize, I guess you could say, for people who are listening, like, how does warmer jobs actually create those, helps you get to those through those connections?
yeah, yeah. So the main way it does, and this is the main product, is you connect your LinkedIn. There's a way of exporting your connections on LinkedIn, which I recommend anyone do anyway, just as a process for their job search. But it goes connection by connection that you have and finds the company website for that connection, finds the career site for that company, and then pulls the jobs from that site so that you can search them. And it shows you who you know at the companies with open jobs. So if I'm looking for marketing jobs in San Francisco or DC, maybe Elena shows up because Shift is hiring or whatever, right? So you basically see this list of all the jobs that are in your network along with the person at that company who you know. So you can ask them for a referral or to connect you with the hiring team to learn more about the role and just network your way in. Um, that's the main
Hmm.
product. And there's
Yeah.
also a way to add friends on the platform. So if I added, for example, my old business partner on the platform, I can also see the jobs in his network. So even if I don't know someone at a company, he might, and I can ask him for an introduction to that person who can then introduce me to the right people at that company too.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, when I saw it, like the visual, I was like, oh, this is just amazing. Anybody's listening, first of all, go visit the website. Like, I just think it's so beautifully done. It's such the user experience, because I'm building a product as well. And when I see it, I'm like, why doesn't our product look like this yet? You know what I mean? Like, it just looks so beautiful and easy to use. And like, I just love it. And it's just, yeah, it makes everything so much easier. When you look at LinkedIn, and no shame on LinkedIn, like I love LinkedIn for my content creation and stuff, but it's not the best place to find a job, because like you have to think, you're like, who do I know? And da da da. And then you have to, and if you have a lot of connections, like if you have no connections, it's also a problem, because it's like like, because then you have to go to every single one to see where you connect, da da da. If you have too many connections, like I have like over 20,000, so I'm like, I don't even know where to start with my LinkedIn. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like I don't even know. I just get overwhelmed at this point. I don't even, I've given up on LinkedIn when it comes to like trying to reach out to people, because there's too many. So I like it that it kind of just like it just organizes everything. So that's beautiful. Has there been any pushback, or like what has been your experience with people who are like, listen, Asher, I want to mass apply because it gives me that satisfaction, right? Versus going the referral way. Like have is this platform, do you think it's for people who just naturally believe in the networking, or people who are like, I don't want to have anything to do with networking. I don't care about referrals. I just want to apply and take
Yeah.
my chances. No, what is it? The numbers game. Play the numbers game.
Yeah, I mean, I two thoughts on that. So one is I think the mass apply strategy is an okay tool to have in the tool belt. And if you want to use a service like that, that's okay. And there have been success stories through that. I think people do still find jobs through those services. I think it will get harder over time, but people do find jobs through them. And again, especially if you have a unique background or you're applying to a more niche type of role, and you have a really good, like, let's say, a technical background doing, I don't know, DevOps, right, or system infrastructure. There are probably going to be fewer people applying to those jobs, and so it's going to be easier if you mass apply. I think what Warmer Jobs is built for is people who maybe are doing that cold application process, but are ready to devote more time just to trying something else to land the job. And I think the best Warmer Jobs users have been burnt because they've cold applied and they've failed, and they've sent their 1,000 applications and they've heard back from two places and they haven't gotten past the phone screen with those places, and they go, I need to get interviews, and clearly if I'm just focused on the wrong metric of the number of applications, it's not working, right? And they're a little bit demoralized usually. Um, and then they come to Warmer Jobs and they realize, oh wow, this could be so much simpler and easier. Let me just ask these two people who I already know for referrals to their companies, and they land an interview or two, and they sort of see the value. I think just getting burnt a little bit by the current process is where a lot of the users come from, because they realize they need to try something different. And then they realize, okay, well, I've always felt kind of weird about networking, but I have to lean into it. And it's just kind of time to grit my teeth and do it because nothing else is working, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I'm curious, as you've been kind of building this, what has been like the biggest surprises or challenges, like anything like that interesting that popped out? Because you've been a builder like most of your life, it sounds like. So, but like anything that popped out that could be useful for people who are also building and like thinking like, what do I need to watch out for when I'm building stuff, or in your experience?
yeah. Let me think. So one immediate one on the job search front that surprised me was there are a number of recruiting processes that sound meritocratic on the surface, where they're sort of blind applications, right? We let anyone apply, and they have a sort of very, very rigorous formal process, at least to the outside is how it sounds. But I've had users tell me that when they reach out to their contacts, even at government agencies, for example, I had a user who applied to the Federal Reserve. And before he applied, he reached out to a contact he had there, and the contact said, look, we do accept every application, but the ATS only forwards us applicants who use these keywords in their resume and cover letter. So if you
Hmm.
actually want to interview and you want to get this job that's posted, you need to use these words. And so by having this contact at the Federal Reserve, and this was late 2024, I think, so it was before all the layoffs and everything, this person got an interview because he just put the right keywords in because this person told him what keywords
So
to put in. And you'd
fascinating.
think it would be this totally meritocratic thing, and it still was not, right?
Yeah.
So I've heard stories like that, and that was surprising to me because I didn't expect, like in hindsight, it makes sense, but I didn't expect that going in. I think it's also been refreshing to me to see a lot of people think they don't have big networks, or they come from underprivileged backgrounds or what have you. But it turns out that friends and family actually still have really good networks, and I've seen people network into jobs through, again, cousins, folks from their church, There's usually like people are in some form of community, and there's usually ways if you go a degree out, right? If you ask who else do you know who has a job, or if you're looking to, let's say, break into tech, do you know anyone in San Francisco or who works in tech? You can start to get into other networks of people very easily, and it's actually very empowering to people who think they don't have advantages that other people have who are already very well networked. It just takes, again, asking that question and getting a degree out, and I think that's been really awesome and surprising for me to see. And I think it opens up a lot of opportunity for people. And there's a way of talking about networking, right, that makes it look like it's an old boys club and, there's all these Nepo babies out there and you have to, grow up in a certain family or something. And that's really
Mm-hmm.
not the case. I think like
Yeah.
that has been enormously refreshing to me too. And
Mm.
it builds on the spirit, I think, of the early boot camps that I worked with where we were taking truck drivers and music teachers and they were getting six-figure salaries at Google afterward, right? And these were people who had no background in tech. And I think with the networking approach, there's something very similar here that I'm starting to poke at that's really exciting me. So,
Mm.
um,
Yeah, I think that's also so spot on because a lot of people think it's like well, I don't have a network. Well, actually, you do because even like if you graduate from a university, you have X number of thousands of alumni who are actually your network, and you could use, I mean, realistically, if you have like nobody you have on your LinkedIn or you're just starting, that's the reality is like that's your first network or communities, like you said. And I think a lot of people just think networking is like, who do I know who works in a corporate job, who I personally know, etc. Versus it's like there's so many spider webs, if you want to call them that. Just like if you just think outside the box, for the lack of a better
yeah,
word, it's like it's accessible, it's right there. So,
yeah, I agree. I really like thinking like, how do you unlock the other spider webs? So it's even like, it's
mm,
not who do I just know who works at a corporate job? It's who do I know who knows other people who have jobs? That's literally
yeah,
like, that's how I started,
so
right?
simple. Yeah.
Like,
Who do I know who have other jobs? Yeah, which is
I
so
think
many
there's like,
people. Yeah.
I like working outward that way, right? And I also
Yeah.
like working backward where it's like, okay, if you see a job posting open at a company that you want to work at, you can be a little more targeted in who you find at that company. And I've been building this Chrome extension recently that lets people easily look up the hiring team behind a job post. But I think what's great is when you know the sort of job you do want, there's something very organic and genuine, and there's a lot of context that you probably have around why you want that job that will make it compelling to when you reach out to someone more cold who works on that team, right? And so I think the mistakes that I've seen people do is if they try to network their way into a job, they reach out immediately to the recruiter who's already slammed by applicants. The recruiter almost has no time, and they're not going to be able to give you a great feel for the team, and it's going to be hard to sell them because they're being sold by everyone, right? But if you reach out to individual contributors on the team, right? Let's say the engineer, the designer, the customer success person, um, anyone else on the team, they'll give you a better feel for the culture, but also fewer people are reaching out to them. So they can then refer you to the recruiter and the recruiter will pay you more attention, right? But again, when you reach out to them, you have to say something like, hey, I saw this job posting for, I don't know, an organic dog food e-commerce specialist, and I own a Shih Tzu who's had dietary problems, and so I had to buy organic dog food. And
Mm-hmm.
suddenly there's a very organic reason you're reaching out because there's a reason you ended up on that job post and why that job post stood out to you in the first place, right? So I think even if you're not working outward from your network, which is one great approach, I think when you're working backward too, if you can tap into that sort of genuine, why is it interesting to you and why are you a particularly good fit, you'll also stand out sort of in the way you were talking about where, at the other end, there is a company hiring and they're comparing you against all the other applicants, right? So if you're talking with someone who doesn't hear from other applicants and you're saying things that other applicants aren't saying, that's a recipe for success, right? So.
Yeah, and you're probably you could be just the right candidate that the company's like looking for. So you're actually doing, your part to make sure they find you through these, connections and networks and stuff like that. I think that's another thing. Is like, well, we talk ourselves out of a job almost, or out of trying to talk to that connection. I love the point about not reaching out to like the HR recruiters who get bombarded, but actually reach out to just a regular person working there, not the CEO, maybe not the head of the department, because they're also probably very busy or has systems of managing their LinkedIn. But yeah, just like a person on the ground that just give you any information. And I like the point about like actually saying something useful. I think that's another thing. Like, don't just copy paste same thing. Adjust your reach out based on who it is that you're talking to. What's the information that they can provide for you versus just like a blanket approach, like let's just ask for a job or say I've applied and here's my resume and pass it on. So I like that. That's spot on.
Actually, and just to add
Yeah,
on to that, one
please.
last thing is I think where a lot of people can get hung up on in networking is they go, I don't know how to add value to this, right? Like, why should this person take
Mm,
25 minutes out of their day to talk to me? And I think some hidden places people don't realize they can add value is one, they can share, you can share what you've learned from your conversations you've had with other people, right? So if you've been interviewing a lot of people in the organic dog food space, you can say, hey, I can give you the lay of land of like what competitors are doing, right? Or sort of like what I've seen in the industry. And the other one, especially if you're unemployed, is you actually have a lot of time, right? So you could offer some free labor to research stuff, right? To maybe build a small side project for them. Again, if they reach out and you want to suss out how much time
hmm
you want to spend. But there's
Yeah.
someone I know who got a job at an electric skateboard company because he went and he got feedback from 200 people. He made a little website people could sign up on, and he emailed all his friends, and he went, I want you all to try this skateboard and to give me the feedback, and I'm going to send this feedback to the founders of the company. And he spent like a
Nice.
weekend having these people like ride these skateboards and type up all their feedback, and that was how he got in the door, right? So I
I
think
love
a
it.
lot of ways to
I
do
love
it.
it. I love that example. I'm gonna clip that out for everybody. Like I get so much hate sometimes for saying like just do things for free.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just like spend some time, like give a little bit of your time to potentially open a door. And it's like, who wants to work for free? And like it's all the thing. I've done a lot of things for free that ended up opening doors for me. So I'm a huge proponent of like actually again thinking outside the box, do something different, put your effort into this thing versus doing like what everybody else is doing, which is click and apply.
Exactly.
So that's a great example. I love that example. You can apply this to so many things. You can apply this whole skateboard thing to so many things. Like the same concept, right?
Yeah.
And with all the AI tools you have available now, you can easily put up a little survey website, collect data, send it across, right? I love it. Such a great idea. Okay, looking 2 years down the line, just 2 years. We don't want to look too far. Who knows? We might all be replaced by robots in 2 years. Who knows? But what's the dream, Asher? Like, where do you see taking warmer jobs?
Yeah, but I think, the vision is for the company is to make it as easy as possible to network your way into a job. And so I think I see a lot of little tools being built out to help people with the networking side of their search. So the first version, right, is the way to see all the jobs in your network, and that sort of scraper that goes out to those career sites. Another thing I've been building is this way of looking up the hiring team behind job posts.
Mm,
Another idea that I've been noodling on is LinkedIn is still where a lot of people live, and that is where the network is, right? And so finding ways to interact with people before you even reach out. So a lot of people are posting, but knowing what posts to comment on and having a process around that, that's something that I'm sort of fuzzy thinking about. But I think there's a lot of directions you could go here, right? I mean, one obvious one is communities and events and ways of matching people up based on the industry they're in, their interests that they have, et cetera. Maybe in a way, and again, this is very fuzzy for me right now, but in a way that traditional career fairs don't don't do because those can feel very transactional. And if there's a way of doing it, again, I don't know exactly how this would work, but doing it where it's a little bit lower stakes and it's maybe more around company values and culture of people and trying to get a fit for that, or maybe it's through people you already know and doing little sessions with people you know and having them invite their friends so it feels warmer and more natural. Again,
mm,
this is all stuff I'm sort of playing with, but the overall North
yeah,
Star is making it easy to network your way into a job.
yeah. I love it. I love it. And where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you, check out warmer jobs?
Yeah. So head to warmerjobs.com. The beta is open to the public. You're welcome to sign up and use it. I'm on LinkedIn, so linkedin.com/in/A King Abramson. I'm also on Twitter at Asher Thoughts. But yeah, if you go to warmerjobs.com, pretty easy to find me. So um,
Nice.
that's the way.
And I'll make sure to include all that in the show notes. And yeah, I recommend anybody. I mean, I have probably quite a number of followers that listen to this that are in job search or know somebody who's in job search. So give it a shot because I think it's brilliant. Just again, when I looked at it from like a recruiter perspective, job search, I was like, oh my God, this is so brilliant. This was save both sides so much time and get the right candidates in the right door. And that could be one of the steps towards a solution to a really broken recruitment system. I mean, coming from somebody who's recruited, it's messed up. We all know it. We just don't have a solution. And I think this is like step one. This is like could be a real solution to the broken recruitment process. So, Asha, I appreciate what you're doing. I'm excited to watch your journey and continue to support in any way that I can. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, this is excited for your listeners to to go out and hopefully get jobs.
Yes. Cheers to more jobs for everybody.
Yes.